Hi Peter. Good morning everyone and welcome to Tranquillitas Healing Hub. We're back after a little break. Peter's been travelling and has brought back some awesome stories, some beautiful books, and she's going to tell us her very important reading that she did at this seminar. It's amazing what she's bringing back to Australia as well, all the information that she'll be able to share to everyone. One of the things that she's brought home is this book, which is a compilation of stories, poems from a variety of different practitioners, and there's a little poem in here that I would like to read, but it's also the picture on the other side. It's called Energy of a Tree, and if we have a nice little look at that picture there, see that? It's beautiful. That could be a cross-section of anything, really.
Absolutely. I was so fortunate to actually go into the Glacier National Park up in Montana, and I have this absolutely amazing photograph of a trunk of a tree, and it just blew me away. With it was like it was so alive, and I had to stay absolutely focused on the roots of this tree that had fallen down, and it was well over like thousands of years old. It was just magnificent. Yeah, so even the roots of the trees have life.
Yeah, it's all that unseen beauty that's just,
in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, we were also taken to a majestic forest, and in there they had a living stump, which I actually put my ear to, and I could feel and hear the heartbeat of the stump of this ancient tree. Oh my goodness.
This is amazing, is it? Because I'll be honest, I've only just the other day put my ear right up against the trunk of a tree and ignored myself and just listened to the vibration going through my ear, much like you would as a child with the shell.
Yes.
Yeah. And the sound was different. It was this constant flowy.
And if only we as human beings will wake up and realise that is the life force. The life force that keeps us all going. All of us human beings, all of the animals on this earth, and all of Mother Nature in her trees, her shrubs, her bushes, and now to see it burning, and you know, we pray and stop and think at this very point in our video this morning of all the people and the animals and Mother Earth that are burning over in Queensland, New South Wales and Sydney. And we pray for rain.
100%. This Doriano, you said should you bring the rains down upon the lands where they need it the most, the parched lands, the burnt lands. Our animals need the fresh, clean water back into the waterways, wash away the ash and bring back new life. New life is what we need from these ashes. Protect everyone. We love you. Pray for rain. Amen.
Amen. And we also need to remember our brothers and sisters and Mother Nature in the burning of California, because that was alive with absolute fire, as bad as our fires are over on the East Coast.
It really brings us starkly home just how small our world is, you know, like we're seeing big parts of it burning and the Amazon burning as well. But then we've got big floods happening. It's a bit of rebalancing happening with our Mother Earth at the moment.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it calls for solidarity, it calls for compassion, it calls for us to stick together and to be hopeful. I mean, Mother Earth has been doing this reshuffling for many millennia. Okay, so yes, it's scary. Yes, it's hurting those that are directly affected. But as humans do, we'll get through this and we'll get through it together.
Yeah, and it will come to rebirth.
Yeah, it will. It will. It's So with this little poem, and I think I'd like to also include. I'd love to say this is sisters and brothers because we are all one. But this little poem was by Doreen Sullivan, RT. And it reads this: Sisters, I have a circle of special friends who are very dear to me. They are my spiritual sisters. Sisters whose wisdom teaches me. Sisters whose compassion comforts me. Sisters whose encouragement empowers me. Thank you for being my sister and brother.
That's a beautiful prayer, actually. Not only a poem, but a prayer.
Yeah, because those are the basic things that help us get through: wisdom, compassion, and encouragement. You can have all of that learning, but if you're not encouraged to put it into practice, and that it's going to be uncomfortable, but come on, let's do it anyway. That's the sort of thing that we need going forward.
So, at long last, after such a long time, I would like to share with you now the presentation that I presented at the 5th International Congress of Therapeutic Touch. I will follow this by a chapter from the book Be Your Own Healer, Self-Care with Therapeutic Touch, from a very dear woman by the name of Crystal Hawke. I will talk a bit more about Crystal before I start reading her presentation from the Congress. So here's my presentation. An International Sustainable Healthcare Plan. Thank you. It is an honour to be here today, and I must say it is an honour to be able to share this with you today. And thank you to Alicia for bringing Tranquillitas Healing Hub to life. I'm going to present to you a vision I had for an international sustainable healthcare plan, which resulted from a submission I forwarded to the Health Department of Western Australia for their sustainable healthcare plan in 2018. I am led to understand that health systems around the globe are under insurmountable pressures, especially in Western countries, where health is based on a business, sickness model and a science model, and not a preventative one. In Australia, I see the need for holistic health care and the true meaning of holism, together with healing practices, to be integrated with the scientific evidence-based business, big biomedical model that is practiced in Australia. This integration is paramount to the health and well-being of all Australians. For a population of 25 million, the cost of the Australian healthcare system for 2018-2019 is over $180 billion, 10% of the GDP. And if the current system does not change, the system is, in my opinion, unsustainable. The vision I'm presenting today is based on a wholeness model, commencing with a picture of our wholeness at birth. As we know, we are made up of a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual body. This is our true self, totally connected in being. The environment in which we live is also part of our being. When a baby is born, all people see is the physical body. We do not see who the baby really is. We do not see the whole of who the baby is. The baby is just a tiny human being. The door to the baby's soul is open. The spirit is free. The baby's emotional and mental bodies are at the very beginning of development, and as science now tells us, the development to full maturity is not complete until the age of 28. In many persons earlier, I would suggest, and in many persons later. The connectedness to who our developing little one truly is affected by the outer world influences, and the majority of the little ones start to lose his, her individuality and becomes conditioned to conform to societal expectations. I have been so privileged to be blessed with 4 beautiful grandchildren, and they have taught me to see and live as a little child in my inner world. What I have observed is what external worldly influences can have on their wholeness. I have observed that changes start to appear in kindergarten, and this has the potential in many to develop into a lack of heart-centeredness, and some children learn to develop a total separation from their inside world. Life's journey will take them on various different pathways, and if there is a breakdown in their young lives and the child is not nurtured in non-conditional loving values and virtues, then this could have major ramification in their lives. And as they grow, continuing on in their life's journey without a positive framework for living, this has the potential to lock his or her life into a very negative framework of living. Many traumas that young ones are exposed to also have major influences on their predispositions to emotional, mental and spiritual brokenness, which, as we know, the resultant manifestations that could follow in this continuum of the negative framework of living are spiritual, mental, emotional, and finally physical brokenness in both individuals, families, and societies. This brokenness leads to the loss of the true self and the closing of the door to the soul. This could leave a person with a severe addiction or addictions, drugs, alcohol, leading to domestic violence, either as a receiver of violent actions, physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually, etc., from the very young to the aged, or a perpetrator. And this leads on then to stress, anxieties, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, broken homes and families, societies, homelessness, and ultimately suicides, to name just a few of the consequences. In Australia, the responses by the federal, state, local and governmental bodies has been to have inquiries, Senate inquiries, and royal commissions month after month at the cost of millions of dollars to the Australian taxpayer, with, it seems, ultimately no real sustainable outcomes. And I would like to point out here, currently we are seeing it still with the Banking Royal Commission, the outcome of that. No sustainable outcomes. Therapeutic touch, in my opinion, would, if implemented into a global model of healthcare, enable education of holistic healing programs to be developed from cradle to the end of life. Yeah. Holistic therapeutic touch practitioners, as we all know, do embrace this model of care and have a deep understanding and practice with deep care and compassion. This model of care does have major cost benefits for consumers who receive holistic care and healing through the power of touch. And for healthcare providers who allow practitioners to practice holistic care and use therapeutic touch in their daily work schedules, be it in the public or private sectors, in primary healthcare, in healthcare in hospitals, in aged care institutions, and hospice care. There is a need, really a need, to collaborate with funders and universities that teach nursing, medicine and allied health professionals, together with other health and well-being institutions, to enable education on holistic healthcare and healing to be at the centre of their chosen field of study and or practice. The International Therapeutic Touch Association and the Australasian Therapeutic Touch Association and the associations in countries of Germany, of Spain, of Austria, of Rwanda and others where therapeutic touch is taught, are, in my opinion, the world leaders in the education of holistic healthcare and healing practitioners. There is a need to build a national health code of practice to ensure that countries who are signatories to the World Health Organization's policy on CAMS and the environment comply with their policies. Australia is signatory to their policies, however, does not comply in any way to include the policies in the business biomedical science model. The Australian model of health service delivery does not meet the needs of Indigenous and culturally and linguistically diverse persons or cultures as per the World Health Organization's policies. In Australia, as in other Indigenous cultures and practices in other countries, there is much to be learnt from our traditional Indigenous healers and their practices. This is now at the very early stage of development here in Australia, led by South Australia and the people from the YPA lands in Central Australia. In conclusion, we need a paradigm shift in a way we manage health and well-being from the beginning of life, the continuum of life, which includes all persons with disabilities, chronic disease, to the end of life care. This needs to be considered by not only government departments responsible for health service delivery, but a whole approach with all service deliverers for all persons and cultures, and this includes the current education and justice systems plus others in this country. Health specific. There needs to be a development of an international sustainable healthcare plan. Plan and implement the shift from a purely scientific model of care to a model of curing and healing with a real focus on the prevention of illness and disease. And thirdly, the development of an education system teaching the true meaning of holistic health care and healing. I do believe the vision that I had of an international sustainable healthcare plan for all nations would be achievable for all persons and for the environment if implemented, and enable the true total reconnection to wholeness and finding the immortal diamond within them, the immortal diamond, the divine self, divine love, light, energy, peace, truth, and happiness. Thank you.
Well, Peta. Yeah, so true.
I really believe it, you know, through my 72 years of living, and, you know, the response to the paper that I did receive just absolutely floored me, and I want to thank everybody who was present at the Congress for their absolute support, their love, and for their receiving of the message. So please, you know, in the future, I think it looks great, it looks good, because we need that balance, that balance of the art and the wisdom with the science of all humanity and nature.
And all of our wisdoms. Because what works for our bodies does not necessarily work for a native Aboriginal.
Absolutely.
Their body chemistry is made differently.
And I think that the more people who are awakening to this, and I see it on a global level happening, and, you know, to see the absolute focus of meditation and mindfulness and the power of energy healing being discussed with the arts and with the poetry and the just the whole program of the arts, and the need for that whole integration act for health and well-being, but all for sickness, and it's so important for pre-birth care, for birthing care, for postnatal care, for all through one's journey in life to the end of care of life. And, you know, if we could only convince our politicians and our doctors to look at bringing healing and the power of touch into the people who are now going through hospices and palliative care, and it would just really, really assist the families and assist the grieving process. And if we could just start there, even start at the beginning of life, and it will continue through to the end of life. And if we can get it into educational systems, if we can get it into the justice systems, we won't need jails.
No, it's just healing centres. You're feeling troubled, let's go to the healing centre. Yeah, exactly. I think that we're also fearful as well, you know. We have been brought up on a fear-based kind of, and so moving to compassion-based way of thinking, it's us putting these seeds into the minds of the young ones, or the ones of our age at the moment that aren't actually sitting in Parliament. They're going to have to move in there and move the older generation out, the way of thinking out, because the movement that happens with these children these days, with how they all getting together with the climate change and stuff like that, okay? Now, as much as the adults are not happy they're not at school, okay? They're wagging school, horrible children, naughty children, right? But they're right. They're going to inherit this planet. And so us smart adults need to be teaching the children, giving them the seeds of the right words, the right characters to be bringing out, pointing out to the virtues, the gifts of characters there. And it's about bringing that light, the language, the right language for children to use when they've come up against a problem. They're not going to immediately react out of fear. Hopefully they will be able to stop, pause, assess the situation and work out if they need help to get through it, instead of fearfully going through life.
Yeah, I mean, the words you've just spoken were what I grew up with the nursing process.
Yeah, and I'm not trained that way.
And you're not trained that, and exactly the way you've described it is the nursing process.
Brilliant.
It is actually subjectively looking at the situation, objectively, and making an assessment. And then developing a plan of care, and then evaluating that.
Yeah, and continuing that.
And continuing that whole nursing process, and the nursing diagnoses that we used to use in the 1980s that was thrown out of the Australian nursing system. But it's the nursing processes for every single thing in life.
And because, but that's why they threw it out, is because you were nursing for such a long time. It wasn't a wham bam, you're in and out of hospital, you're not turning over the numbers, you are hanging on to those patients and caring for them and holding their hands through recovery, which is what humans need. But unfortunately that doesn't work when we're trying to get our patients out of the hospital, are we?
And I really do think nursing needs to step back and take a good look at itself and make something new that is old. And it was just wonderful to meet all these professors of nursing at the Congress, and nurses who are absolutely committed to making a difference to nursing education, the way things are being done. I heard presenters from Florida, I heard presenters from all over Ontario, and I have to share with you now this wonderful little book, Be Your Own Healer, Self-Care with Therapeutic Touch, by Crystal Hawke and Alison Cook. Now, I was so blessed in 2004 to actually be introduced to the Australasian Therapeutic Touch Association when Crystal Hawke came out to Adelaide for a conference and a workshop, and to actually meet Crystal Hawke, who is just the finest, most beautiful elder, full of wisdom, full of joy, and full of life, in her 80s again, was just beautiful. Crystal actually presented a paper. She was a psychotherapist in a previous life, but in 1980, Crystal states that she gave herself a year's sabbatical. And during that year, I learned about therapeutic touch and also enrolled in a physics course at the University of Toronto, teaching what is usually called the new physics or quantum mechanics. You and I live in our everyday world where we can touch, see, and usually we can even measure almost everything. Anything made by human beings can be replicated to see, so there can be many duplicates of an object in our touch and see world. We can count on things being solid. When we walk across a floor, we know we are not going to fall into a hole. When we get into an aeroplane, we know that it'll take us from here to there. We know the path it'll take and how long it takes to get there. At any time, our position in the sky is known. We live comfortably in this world of touch and see. And if I throw a ball to you, you'll be able to catch it, but you could see it coming towards you on a definite path that continues from my hand to yours. We call this continuity. We know that the ball isn't going to move to the right or left, but it will continue on its path. We call that casualty. And at any time we do know where it is in space, and we call that locality. We can play that ball game because we know that in our world that ball will stay on its path. It follows the rules of the Newtonian physics, and Newtonian physics took us to the moon and allowed us to build our civilizations. In our touch and see world, we count on it for everything, and it hasn't failed us to this date. But we also live in another world that is so small and that we can't touch it and can't see it except with specific instruments designed for that purpose. We call this the subatomic world. It is the world of atoms and many elements even smaller than atoms. This world is alive and dynamic. It's filled with rapidly moving particles that, believe it or not, compose everything we see, touch, stand in or on, drive and taste. Indeed, our very beings. We ourselves are actually beings of energy. It's a big thought to grab hold of, but it makes our life very interesting as it opens our lives to exciting possibilities. In this world, the rules of Newtonian physics do not exist. Continuity disappears as these particles leap about in packets of energy, in quantum leaps here and there at the blink of an eye. There's no locality. Subatomic particles move so fast we have to stop their movement to know their location, so we can never know about both location and speed at the same time. There's no casualty. Subatomic particles seem to be able to be created out of nothing, to appear and disappear mysteriously. When we learn this, we can realize that the universe is actually richer and more mysteriously complex than any of our science fiction dramas. Dreams, I should say. If you're shocked at this, you're not the only one. Everyone is certainly shocked when they first learn about the invisible world operating all about us and in us. But curiosity and a sense of adventure can allow us to delve deeper into this unseen world. How amazing! The nature of our universe is certainly not what we have been taught that it is, and certainly not to be taken for granted. The quantum world raises a problem when we look at our healthcare system. Now you'll find this really interesting. It just made my heart beat. I'll repeat that.
Okay.
The quantum world raises a problem when we look at our healthcare system, which is based on the touch and see world.
Yeah.
One possibility for positive change is to integrate the world of energy healing into our health care model. Luckily, I was introduced to the energy healing modality, therapeutic touch. At the same time, I was learning about the quantum world. I had the advantage of already knowing that we ourselves are packets of energy, and that we each have an invisible energy fields that gives us life and can be influenced. So the thought that with TT we could interact with our own human energy field seemed acceptable and normal.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Krieger warns that the practice of therapeutic touch changes the person who practices it.
Yep.
Those using TT often have an increase in intuition, develop sensitivity, attract synchronicity into their lives, and can learn to respect their own sensory experience. Viewing all lives as a process, seeing their wholeness and their interconnectedness to others and to their world, confirms their ability to choose, to be creative, to change. Therapeutic touch needs no outside equipment. You can give it to yourself at any time. It can be given anywhere, in any office, at the grocery store, or on the beach. It's a way of life, a way of offering connection to ourselves at a deep and caring level. We don't need to concern ourselves with how to integrate therapeutic touch into our lives, because we begin to live with the therapeutic touch belief system. When I started being involved with TT, I had a dream. In it, I saw the sky filled with a report card for the people of the earth, and on it was written, not living up to their potential. When I was operating only in the reality of the everyday touch and see world, I was not connected with a large piece of my potential humanness. An understanding of the new physics and the TT allowed me to walk through a doorway into an expanded and more fulfilling reality. I often think that on my private report card now, it says something like, continuously changing, to be filled in as needed. Practicing self-care with TT is a tool that I integrated in my life in various ways, e.g. imagining the flow of energy through me when practicing Kwai Gong, giving myself TT when in the sauna, placing my hands or charged cotton where I'm hurting. One time I was thinking about harmony and balance while walking down Young Street and noticed people picking up on my vibe and smiling at me.
Radiating it.
Yeah. Honestly, this old lady, and I'll call her old because she's a real elder in her 80s. You know, to be hugged by her after from 2014, 2019, 15 years was just such a powerful moment for me.
Yeah.
To be so totally connected with her and to hear her speak at the Congress. And I have her papers on a USB, which if anybody would like to contact me to listen to the quantum physics behind therapeutic touch. And also there was another professor who's currently studying and working and studying, researching therapeutic touch and healing at New York University by the name of Jan. It just slips my mind at the moment. But if anyone wants to know anything about therapeutic touch, have no hesitation to contact either Alicia or myself. And we are going to be having the level 1 therapeutic touch course come to Perth again.
Oh, really good.
Not this weekend, but the following weekend. We still have some vacancies if anybody is interested. Please have no hesitation to contact me. Thank you. Thank you, Alicia.
No, thank you so much, Peter. I really feel privileged because I didn't grow up in a nursing background. I grew up around teachers, actually. Yes, school teachers and high school teachers, music teachers. But I was in and out of the hospital all the time growing up with asthma.
Yeah. May I just say here, what was so beautiful about the Congress, it wasn't just nurses who were there.
Okay.
There were other therapists from other modalities, there was artists, there was musicians, there was a wonderful phys ed teacher who taught us all these wonderful finger exercises for people with arthritis, for people with the carpal tunnel syndrome, and I have all that information available.
Yay.
So it was a whole gamut of therapists, of teachers, and because therapeutic touch is for everybody. It does not specifically have to be in the medical profession, but this is where it is so needed in the medical profession.
Yeah, I think the education of therapeutic touch is required everywhere.
Yeah.
The practice of it maybe more so for the nurses and the healers and stuff like that. But
everybody's got the healing potential.
Correct.
Everybody.
Yes, they do.
And that is exactly kind of what really Crystal and Alison Cook have highlighted in this book about being your own healer.
Being your own healer.
And
I only just heard about being able to talk to my body and tell it what to do.
Yeah.
I know we go through life as robots, don't we, Peter, until we kind of realise or get another bit more education to know that there's quantum physics. Wow.
Saying about this touch and see world, the Newtonian model, whereas like the Einstein model is just so different. It's the quantum physics.
Yeah. And I was told somewhere it's not when you see it you'll believe it, it's when you believe it you'll see it. Yeah, and
I like that.
Yeah, got to swap it around a little bit.
I think it's a whole reframing. The whole reframing for the re-education. Because
and there's got to be no shame around it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what humans are so pride. Like we've got pride, we've got our little badges and our
egos.
Fan the egos down. I know, right? Oh no, I know what I'm talking about. We know that you know what you're talking about. But there's another way that we can talk about it, and so I suppose it's trying to work out how we can get all that information over to these people that are really just closed off and are not willing to listen. And I don't ever want to say give up on those sorts of people, because don't. Just plant those little seeds. They might be annoying, just plant them. It's okay. There's a better way. Yeah. It's progression.
It will happen.
One day.
It will happen. It's already, like I can see it already happening. But it's absolutely essential that it actually gets funded and integrated.
Mainstream.
Into mainstream medicine, because otherwise nothing is going to change.
That's right. It'll just be another fad, and it does need to be. Well, I mean, like the Aborigines were saying, it's got to be written into the Constitution, because, like, for their recognition, because the next political party that comes into power could just pretty much kick them back out again.
Absolutely, and I think that it's essential that we start the re-education process as soon as possible. We, I think, need to really start, you know, being seen in the media, being seen, you know, bringing it to the attention of, but again, it's that whole ego, and people don't want to even have a discussion. So I know I've been very motivated to keep going, and once I fully recover from our trip, which is me thinking I'm a 27-year-old and not a 72-year-old, burning the candle at both ends. It's taken me longer to recover than what I expected it to happen overnight, but it's I'm slowly getting back my full, what do they call it?
Mojo.
Yeah, getting back my mojo and going from, you know, first gear all the way up to whatever. So it'll probably take me another few days, I'd suggest, to get right back to. But I certainly had a wonderful time and got lots of stories to share.
Yes, I'll be uploading pictures of all the books that Peta has brought home, and I know that she would love to share them with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people would, you know, like to have access to where they can get the books, I can certainly direct you from there. And what we found really interesting was our visit to the Indigenous Indian museums that we went to.
Yes.
One was in Schenectady, upstate New York, and that was the Soe, I think it was a Soe, my memory, museums where, I've got it, the Iroquois Indian Museum.
Iroquois, okay.
And that was absolutely a walk back in time. And then we went to one in Montana, and it was where we think that the movie The Black Robe was filmed back. It was a movie back in the 1970s and 80s, and if you can get that movie on Netflix or hold of it somehow, it is worth a read. And having gone there and seen the museum and seeing the destruction of their culture from that region, it's heartbreaking. But I think that it's just so wonderful to see the rise of and respect. And Alicia and I were discussing earlier, I think the thing that I really loved about the American Indian indigenous cultures, and was the same all those years ago of our Australian indigenous, was the very fact of the matriarchal system. And the very fact that Western cultures have that totally patriarchal system and has squashed
the mothering.
The matriarchal system that flourished through our early civilizations, up until, I don't know when it really changed, but we need to bring that balance back with the mother, father, God.
100% balance of the masculine and feminine,
Absolutely.
And it puts another perspective of your prayer hands together. So the masculine and feminine. The wholeness. We shall wrap it up today. It was a lovely discussion, and we'll be putting something up on the internet. It was good fun.
It's good to be home.
Good to have her home. Definitely.
And take care, everybody. And self-care. Remember, self-love, self-belief.
Have a lovely day, everyone.
And self-peace within. Take care. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.